In the dimly lit, bustling evening of New York City, the streets were crowded with thousands of people, yellow taxis lining the roads, and distant sirens wailing. This city never seemed to sleep. Emily Watson stepped out of her office, her laptop bag slung over her shoulder. Her profession was investigative journalism, and she was on the hunt for information that, if exposed, could bring down some of the most powerful people. There was a slight chill in the evening air, but beads of sweat formed on Emily's forehead. She knew that today, her biggest report of her life was about to be completed. Taking out her phone, she dialed her friend, Detective Mark's number. "Mark, I think I've got the proof," she said, her voice urgent. On the other end, Mark's voice came through. "What are you saying? Where are you?" Emily was walking towards an old bridge. "I'm on my way home. It feels like this is their final moment. I've locked the files away. I'll be able to share everything in the office tomorrow morning." Before Mark could say anything, suddenly, a black van came speeding toward her from across the street. There was no sound of brakes, just the roar of the engine accelerating. Emily's eyes widened. In less than a second, the impact. Her body was thrown into the air and landed on the road. Surrounding her were screams, car horns, and unfamiliar faces running toward her. Her breath became heavier, and her vision started to blur. For the last time, she gazed up at the sky. Darkness consumed everything. A strange silence in the darkness. Emily's eyes slowly opened, but her body froze as she saw the scene around her. She was standing on the same street where she had been in an accident. The lights were on, the cars were moving, the people were walking, but no one seemed to see her. She tried to walk, but she felt like she had no connection to the ground. Am I alive? Suddenly, a distant scene caught her eye. There, a few feet away, her own body was lying in a pool of blood. A crowd of people had gathered, the police had arrived, an ambulance was standing. Someone was screaming loudly. She was gone. Emily's breath caught. She looked at her hand. Clear, a light blue glow. She had no body, she was now just a spirit. Light whispers were coming from all around, as if shadows were talking to her. Just then, a trembling voice was heard. "Your work is not finished yet, Emily." She turned quickly, but there was no one there. But a feeling told her that she was not alone. Someone or something is around him. The surrounding scene was slowly changing, but one question kept echoing in Emily's mind: have I really died? In front of her, police officers were talking, ambulance workers were lifting her lifeless body onto a stretcher. The flash of cameras from journalists lit up the scene. Some passers-by stood silently watching, while others whispered, "Was it an accident or a murder? I'm here. Look at me. I'm standing right here." Emily screamed, but no one responded. It was as if she didn't exist. Her breath became heavy. But wait, breath? No, she wasn't breathing. Her heart wasn't beating. She looked at her hands, transparent, glowing with a faint bluish hue. She waved her hand through the air, but it dissipated like smoke. I'm no longer human. I'm just a spirit. It was impossible to accept, but the reality stood before her, undeniable. Her mind flashed back to the final moment of the accident, the black van, the roar of the engine speeding towards her. This wasn't just an accident. It was a planned murder. A whisper of a shadow called to her. At that moment, Emily felt a cold breeze. The sounds around her dimmed, and the city lights suddenly seemed to fade. In front of her, a shadowy figure began to form. Vague, mist-like, but an unsettling energy spread around it. A chilling voice echoed through the air. "You don't know yet, Emily, but you'll soon know everything." If Emily's heart had still been beating, it would have skipped a beat. She looked around, but no one else seemed to see the shadowy figure. Her eyes moved to the other side of the street, where an old, abandoned building stood. Strangely, a shadow moved in the building's window. A feeling surged from within her. Go there. All the answers are there. Emily hesitated. Should she really go there? But it felt like her body was moving toward the shadow on its own. When she reached the building, she paused for a moment. A whispering sound came from inside, and that voice spoke again. "Your work is not finished yet, Emily." The door in front of her suddenly creaked open by itself. A cold breeze blew out from the darkness inside, as if someone was waiting for her. Slowly, Emily's spirit moved into the building. The door to the building opened automatically, and Emily took a step inside. The surrounding environment changed immediately. There was not a bit of air anywhere, yet a cold shiver touched her soul. The rooms inside were dark, dusty, and the paint on the walls was peeling. It looked like an old office building. Emily glanced around, some broken chairs, papers scattered on the floor, and an old clock hanging on the wall. Its hand stopped at 12:03 a.m. She thought she had seen this place somewhere. Have I been here before? She tried to remember, but suddenly she heard a sound. Tick, tick, tick. The clock was not moving, but there was sound. Emily slowly walked towards a desk in front. On the desk was an old notebook, the pages of which had turned yellow. She reached out and tried to turn the pages, but her finger went through the pages. I can't catch anything. Then that whisper was heard in the air again. You've been here before, Emily. She turned around. A shadow was forming behind her. Slowly, the shape of that shadow became clear. Not a person, but a spirit, a pale face, deep hollows under her eyes. Her lips moved. You forgot, but I came to remind you. A sudden storm swept through Emily's mind. Old memories flashed through her mind like shattered pieces. 4 months ago, she had come to this same place for an investigation. A mysterious company, where employees were disappearing one after another. They were last seen in this office. It was then that she noticed some strange things for the first time, some papers, some records, and a strange name, Project Patch. Emily's head began to throb. Did I know something I wasn't supposed to know? And was that why I was killed? The shadow whispered again, your death wasn't just an accident. It was done to stop you. Emily's soul trembled. She wanted to know the truth now, but to know the truth she had to go deeper. Another door lay ahead. Slowly it began to open. Emily slowly walked forward. The second door of the building opened by itself, and a cold breeze blew from inside. It was a small room, with old wooden shelves filled with piles of documents and files. In the middle of the room was a large table, with some dusty papers spread out on it. As soon as she stepped into the room, she heard that strange whisper again. Here is your answer, Emily. Emily looked at the paper. She could see clearly, but she couldn't grasp anything. Her spirit was floating in the room, but her hands couldn't touch anything. Just then, a sound came from outside the door. Whose footsteps? Someone is here. Emily turned quickly. A face appeared in the shadow of the door. Detective Mark Peterson. He had a flashlight in his hand, and a look of suspicion in his eyes. Why is this place open after so long? He whispered. Mark slowly entered the room, shining the flashlight light on the files and turning pages one by one. His brow furrowed. Project Patch? I've heard that name before. Suddenly, an old notebook fell from the table. Emily looked and saw that it was the same notebook whose pages she had been trying to turn a moment ago. So could he give a hint? Mark picked up the notebook. As he turned the pages, some handwritten paper came out, on which a few names were written. Daniel Carter, missing, 2024, and Margaret Leon, missing, 2023, Samuel Davis, missing, 2025, Emily Watson, deceased. It was written in a shaky hand. If anyone finds this, they'll know I'm no longer alive. Project Patch was actually a pseudonym. This was not an ordinary research project. This was something that would spread panic if people knew. They have imprisoned our souls. We can't be freed even if we die. Emily's breath stopped. These words, did they mean that her soul was also trapped here? Just then, the wind became heavy. Before Mark knew it, the glass in the back window shattered. A dark shadow entered the room like smoke through the window, and the whole room began to shake. Mark fell to the floor. The notebook from his hand fell to the side. Emily felt an invisible force approaching her too. You weren't supposed to know, Emily. You could have stopped. The voice echoed directly inside her mind. Emily realized that this spirit was no ordinary one. Is it the spirit of those missing people? Or one of his murderers? Mark was still lying there, trying to get up. Emily knew she had to do something, but how could she fight when she didn't have her own body? The room was shaking, the air was getting heavier, and the shadow was slowly getting stronger. Emily felt that she knew this dark something. It wasn't just a spirit, it was the result of Project Patch. Something that would hold people back even after they died, never to be released. You could have stopped, Emily. The voice echoed in her head again. The fear within Emily subsided. Instead, a kind of anger welled up. No, I won't stop. I will find out the truth even if I die. She stepped forward. She hadn't been able to grasp anything since she became a spirit, but now it seemed that her own spirit was regaining its strength. She raised her hand, and suddenly a light shone. The room was illuminated in a flash. The dark shadow trembled. Its shape began to distort. Emily felt that if she could use this power, maybe she could stop it. She concentrated deeply, gathered all her strength, and stepped towards the shadow. Your game is over, Project Patch. For a moment, the shadow stopped. Emily felt the souls trapped within it screaming for help. She realized that if it were destroyed, they would all be free, but it would require sacrifice. She looked at Mark one last time. Mark was still on the floor, slowly getting to his feet. Emily knew he was alive, but he would never come back alive. She took a deep breath, even though she had no lungs, and then she lunged at the shadow with all her strength. A huge explosion. Light spread around, the entire room was filled with light, and the shadow slowly began to fade. Something screamed, "No, this is not possible." After a moment, everything was quiet. Mark slowly stood up.
The room was the same as before, but everything was completely still. The notebook was lying on the floor, there was no whisper in the air. Emily was gone, she was free. Mark knew that it was impossible to explain what he had seen to anyone. But he vowed he would find out the end of this mystery. The notebook in his hand was the last piece of evidence. He slowly left the room, the night sky was calm outside. But there was a buzz in the air. "Thank you, Mark." Emily's voice. Mark looked, but saw nothing. He smiled a little, then stepped into the dark street. After this terrible mystery, are you ready for more horror stories? And if you also want to be in search of new mysteries, don't miss the next video. Subscribe to our channel, and keep the notification bell ringing, so that you can get new videos as soon as they come. And yes, if you like our video, don't forget to like and comment. We'll be bringing you more scary stories in the next video, so subscribe and stay tuned.